recall shuddering when a neighbor of the Van Sickles named Stuart Shepard said something about the Jewish question. I shuddered because I recognized the expression, the Jewish question, from Mein Kampf. I don't think he was referring to that, but it made me shudder all the same. It's hard to know with Pittsburghers what's what. His neighbors were Holocaust survivors. He was a neighbor of Peter Leo, the mine jester of Allegheny County. A very conscientious and studied neuromanipulator who was in on it with Gregory Carl. But I grew up in this Holocaust survivor community. My father was a World War II veteran who absolutely loathed Germany. My brother was Jewish. And I grew up so sentimentalized to the Israelis that I ignored how abusive they were, attributing it to trauma. And we're at a crossroads in that respect because Gaza has ended my sympathy for Israel. But some of my earliest memories were of guerrilla theater productions of the concentration camps. My father's abhorrence, the menacing rhetoric of Mein Kampf, which I got through some readings of intense attention, Battle of Britain, the rise and fall of the Third Reich, ultimately Michael Burley's tome. And I was deaf and estranged from my scholars' peers at high school. So, although I would have done well had I spoken up in history class, I withdrew into myself. But I always reflected on the fact that they had been pulverized in a shattering way. I read Bruno Bettelheim, Primo Levi, Eli Wiesel. I found out my ear doctor was a director of Holocaust survivors, and I thought it strange that I went deaf, and I began pondering that, as they say in Gurdjieff's cluck. But I was always told that the Israelis were professionals and that they had earned their place in society. So when they were magistrates and doctors, I didn't question them. When they lanced my penis to pee with forked prong and spray in two directions, I just assumed that that was necessary, as they said, because it was small. The tragic films I saw were about the burden of complicity borne by people who were frightened of Hitler enough to save themselves by victimizing the Jews. That's horrible, of course. I knew all about it before the television show The Holocaust came on. I knew long before Schindler's List was shown. I had read Mother Night by Kurt Vonnegut and Anne Frank's diary, and I had been tutored by Jewish families. And even at the age of 6, I danced the hora in the film festival. Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila, Vemisno, Hava Naranana, Hava Naranana, Hava Naranana, Vemisno. Rocky Venesamel, Rocky Venesamel, Rocky Venesamel. Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila, Vemisno. and I read Kaddish at my father's funeral. I don't need to be lied to about the Zionists who participated in murdering my father as part of the double cross with the German Green Party and Yoko Ono and Donald Trump and Netanyahu. It's very clear to me what the University of Pittsburgh has done. Very clear. It's also clear to me that Sinwar, the leader of the Hamas group, connotes sweeping the AIDS attack under the carpet as a war on sin. That's very clear to me. I understand George Bush's grand scheme of two virgins pussy ball that he worked out with Paul McCartney. And I have researched and proven that John Lennon pulled a Houdini. It was a real fast one put together by Kennedy's assassins. So fast that the Kennedys themselves have decided not to go into it. But it's clear what they've done. I don't think that we should have assumed that in defeating Hitler's Germany and being liberated, the Jews would say, let's go forth and show the world how it's really supposed to be done with morality, good business practices, and faithful educational systems and healthcare systems. We should have been more careful, knowing that the rhetoric of mean spirit and revenge is burned into people's psyches by the Axis backstab known as Hollywood. We should have been more careful, knowing that a ship bound for America called the St. Louis was turned around and the victims ended up in Sobibor. We should never have allowed rhetoric about slavery to erase the traditions of the abolitionists. We should have put the abolitionists front and center of our public educational system. And we should have made the issue of genocide an absolute abomination that had to be abolished. Abolitionism is now a mandate. We must abolish the Zionist entity that has crafted such cruelty and atrocity against helpless, innocent, unarmed, mostly women and children, and men who are far finer and deserve far better than the media in America have ever accorded them. They have proven themselves again and again through this obscene idea of Roger Waters for a masterpiece theater genocide I call the TikTok war. We must help them recover. And it's true, we have to continue to be very careful. But the care that we take should be with the goals that we would have hoped the liberated Jews would bring to the table. The goals of education, universal health care, clean water, fair distribution of resources and opportunity, abolition of this obscene misconduct, negotiations and diplomacy across the board, but above all, the humane spirit of seeking understanding between cultures that have differences. It's okay to say we would like to part ways because we're very different from each other. It is wrong to say that someone is a chosen people or a master race. Israel has been discredited, but the Holocaust has not been rendered meaningless. It was a terrible atrocity about which we should have been wiser and more forthcoming, particularly about the injuries and psychic wounds that became endemic in the victims. They have mortified us, rightly. It's right that we are mortified. It is wrong what they have done. Make no mistake, Israel's current condition needs to be abolished. I wholeheartedly support an occupation of peacekeeping forces to put a stop to Israel.